We're no different here in Montgomery. And I think that, through the first 6 months of the year, we've been doing pretty good. And I think the data proves that. I think for us, to see crime down overall, 28% violent crime in particular, down 28%, to see our non-fatal shootings down about 22%, robberies down over 40%, um, part one crimes down about 15%, and homicides down 12%. Those are, very good trends, very, very good trends. We like to, see everything down 100%. We'd love to live in that type of world where that exists. Unfortunately, we don't.
Ho! Welcome in. You didn't think we were coming back, did you? But we are. How about that? Alabama politics this week. Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I appreciated the break that we had, but I'm good. I'm glad to be back. Good to see you. I expected to see a browner, tanner Josh. Have you not been out in the sun?
Well, I think what may be throwing you off a little bit is the lighting that I have. Because I've reached the point here where I can pretty much go out without sunscreen and not burn. So I'm doing okay. I've been staying in, because I'm in Florida. I'm in DeSantis country down here, and I've been staying inside as much as possible because I'm afraid I might be deported by mistake. So I mean, it's so I think it's kind of the lighting that I've had to set up. Matter of fact, last time we did the TV show, Bill told me that I looked like I was washed out. So, but no, man, it's been a great little trip. Had the same thing. We went to Disney for several days with some good friends and had a ball. With our little ones and had that. And then we've been at the just kind of living and working down at the beach for a while now. And so it's been a lot of fun and a good time coming back next week and getting things ready to get into the school year and the whole mess of things. So, hey, but before we get into Jeffrey Epstein and our current pedophile in chief,
Wow.
we do need to tell you about the fine folks at Wind Creek Entertainment and the things that they do for us, which is they help support the podcast, and we really do appreciate them. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment, and we thank them for what they do and how they've done it. And matter of fact, I wrote a column that today's Wednesday, and I wrote a column for today talking about how they have essentially given us a roadmap that we could follow for lifting from the bottom and ensuring that we spend money that we have in this state on the people who need it the most and in the areas in which we need it the most, and in supporting children and helping lift children out of poverty, out of bad education cycles, out of all the things. A lot of stuff that we'll talk to Mayor Stephen Reed about here in just a little bit. The Porch Creeks have done this in their own community with the money that they've been able to make over the years, made it a priority from the very get-go to lift their people up out of poverty. And, they've done a fantastic job of that. And we appreciate being partners with folks who think that way, who act that way, who behave that way, and hopefully they see the same things with us. And so we really appreciate what they do. They got if you like gambling and you like or you just like to have a nice stay at a nice resort and be treated with first class kind of style, man. Go to their places in Atmore, Wetumpka, and Montgomery. You will not regret it. I've stayed recently at the one in Atmore. We're actually talking about stopping and staying at one on our way back home with our little one, just to kind of hang out and break up the trip, like I've told people.
Which one are you going to stay? Which
probably
one
would. We're kind of torn. We may stay at Atmore or we may go to OA. Because OA is another fantastic place that they have. It's a water park and amusement park that they have down in Foley. If you've never been to that, I highly recommend that. We had a ball down there last fall. Went down and enjoyed the water park and stuff. It's indoor, so it doesn't matter what the weather is. Of course, it does if you're doing the amusement park and the roller coasters. You probably don't want to be on those during the rain.
Right.
But yeah, if you're at the water park, it's an indoor water park, and it's really really nice place, and we enjoyed a lot going there. And so we may do that on the way home.
Well, that's good. Let me just say, just for those who are listening who are not gamblers, I'm not a gambler myself. I mean, I think I've maybe gambled 3 times in my life or something
Yeah.
like that. Blackjack or one of those slot machines or something if I just happened to be at a resort where that was
Right.
available. I didn't do any gambling at all when I was down at the 2 times that I was down at the Wetumpka Casino. The one time that I stayed, had a great time. Didn't gamble one bit, but I had a great time. Really enjoyed it, and so I highly recommend it. Like you just said, whether you gamble or not, it's a wonderful place to stay.
It is. It is. And you know what? I'm not. I'm not a big casino gambler myself. I don't do the slots and all that. I will play cards from time to time. The poker stuff, and I will. I do the sports betting. But outside of that, I'm not a big casino guy. And I'm like you. I had an absolute great time down there. Going to the restaurants. Staying at the hotels. Really, really nice. Look them up online. Wind Creek Entertainment. Book you a stay. Break up those beach trips. You got fall break coming up. Y'all be headed to the beach during that time. I'm telling you, break them up and have yourself a nice day. You will not regret it. All right. So while we've been away, there have been some things that have gone down, and the current president finds himself in a bit of a storm. A bit of a MAGA storm, oddly enough, where the MAGAs have turned on him. Some of his best, as he put it, boys and gals have just really had enough of this whole Jeffrey Epstein cover-up, as they call it. And man, I was not a big Epstein conspiracy theorist. Okay, I kind of thought I'd find it unlikely that the dude killed himself, but still, I'm not getting all into the conspiracy theory and the whole thing. But I've got to say, the lengths and steps that have been taken to avoid handing over documents that we all know exist, okay? Because these people have told us repeatedly that they exist. And the steps that they have taken to stop turning those things over or making those things public so everyone can see who's on these lists, what information is there, what's out there about these folks is really, really remarkable. I mean, it's a Mike Johnson shut down Congress so we could avoid a vote on whether or not to disclose the Epstein records. I mean, he shut it down. So we're not going to be here until September. We're not doing this.
And what I think is extremely telling about that, Josh, is that we know with the political environment that we're in right now, if there was something in there that they could use to denigrate or implicate, Democrats like Bill Clinton, who is known to have been on some level an associate of Epstein.
Yeah,
they would do that. They would do that in a heartbeat. So the fact that they're not doing it, to me says that there is something in these documents that they know not only will implicate Clinton, but would implicate Trump and maybe others that they don't want implicated. And the reason I feel confident in saying that is it has been long established that Donald Trump and Epstein had a relationship.
Oh, yes.
Had a close relationship. And anybody that's in denial about that is just lying to themselves or they're completely uninformed. Vanity Fair did extensive reporting years ago. The Miami Herald reporter, I can't remember her name right now, Mary something, she did extensive reporting years ago that established all this has never been refuted.
Yep.
So, right now we're in a situation where, at the very least, we can say with certainty that the current occupant of the White House had a close relationship with somebody who was convicted of sex trafficking and is believed to have been, and I think it's pretty much established, was a pedophile. And now you've got women that are coming out and talking openly about what they saw and what they experienced, as it relates to Epstein and Trump. This is a big deal, and it's a huge problem for Donald Trump.
Yeah, it is. And what gets me is the willingness of the folks in the MAGA world to take a kernel of truth about things, and which you mentioned, Bill Clinton has been a major focus of the far right in this whole deal, and talking about Bill Clinton being on the plane. And listen, okay, if Bill Clinton's on that plane and Bill Clinton was on the client list and Bill Clinton did some bad stuff, Bill Clinton needs to pay for his bad stuff. All right.
Yeah.
And that to me has always been the difference between the MAGA cult and the right wing and everybody else, which is, I'm not married to any of these damn people. Let them, if they did some bad stuff, face the consequences. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't have a flag with his face on it out in my front yard, I mean, I don't.
That's
you know what I'm saying? I don't give a damn if you screwed up, man. It's time to pay up. And so, and in this case in particular, these are the most serious of crimes that we can talk about here. Crimes against children and taking advantage of children. And it just, at the same time as they're doing this, though, they refuse on some level to believe that Donald Trump is involved in this, despite all of the photos and videos. I mean, there are hundreds of photos and videos of him and Epstein while simultaneously around very young women while they're doing this. There are comments from Trump before he became a political candidate talking about the young women and the lifestyle and Jeffrey and all this, my friend, and all these things, and all of the documents and stuff that they have uncovered over the course of time. Trump on the flights, on the plane, meeting Melania on the plane, apparently having sex with Melania on the plane.
Reportedly.
I mean, all of these things that are out there.
And let's add to your list the litany of things you just referenced. Let's add to the fact that it's well documented that when Trump was on Howard Stern's show years ago, he literally referred to his own child, his own daughter, as, if I remember the phrase he used correctly, as, quote, and normally I wouldn't say this, but I'm going to quote him, as, quote, a piece of ass. Unquote.
Yes, yeah, and
he said that on the Howard Stern show.
Yeah.
They were literally having a conversation in which he said that about his own daughter.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, also then was it Barbara Walters he was talking to and said when he said if she weren't my daughter I would date her, and it's just. I mean, it's the creepiest of creeps, and I mean, come on, y'all. I mean, y'all don't see this. I mean, and this dude, and then I tell you what gave the whole game away, even before all this started, was back during the campaign, he sat down for an interview with Fox News, and the people at Fox News were, the two reporters who were there were tossing him basically softball questions, and they said one of the things that, will you declassify certain files? What about the Martin Luther King files? What about the JFK assassination files? And for each one, no problem. What about the Epstein files? Yeah. Well, that one maybe less so. I mean, it was just, and it was such, you knew right then. We ain't seeing those files if he has anything to do with it. And now you have the reports of the FBI combing through the documents looking for his name in order to redact his name from those, or to redact the documents as a whole out of the files that they're going to turn over. You have them just tripping over themselves to try to get around this. And one of the greatest things that I have ever seen is this ridiculous disinformation distraction campaign that they're on now, in which they have tossed everything at the wall to try to distract people from what's going on, starting with his health problems. Coca-Cola's putting real sugar in the Coke, and now they have finally landed on an old tried and true friend. Obama's the real problem here. Obama is the guy, is the devil. Look at what Obama did over here. And man, that Obama created the Russian hoax nonsense, that is, somebody should arrest Tulsi Gabbard for that. Is what somebody should do. That's what should happen. Somebody should arrest Tulsi Gabbard for trying to portray this and trying to cover up potentially sex crimes committed by the sitting president or his involvement with somebody who committed sex crimes by throwing out this BS distraction of this right here. Because if you read that report, and I read the stuff that came out of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It is exactly what we all said at the time. It's exactly what all the investigation said. It's exactly what all the congressional hearings turned up. It's exactly what everybody was saying at the time. Russia did not hack the election. Russia did not come in and attack voting machines and voting processes. Russia used disinformation and the internet and social media, and they inundated people with all of this misinformation, while at the same time, they also, certain Russian hackers, if you recall, also got a hold of Hillary Clinton's emails and other information that was out there, turned that stuff over to the Trump campaign, which they gladly accepted, and then later asked for more from these people. They colluded with Russia.
Russia, if you hear me, Russia, if you're listening, remember that? Russia, if you're listening.
They colluded with Russia, okay? I always thought it was bullshit that they kept saying it doesn't rise to criminal collusion. And the reason that it didn't rise to criminal collusion was because under the statute, apparently, the person on our side of this, the American on our side, has to initiate the action. They're the ones that has to, either offer the help, participate in the help, present the idea, whatever, not merely accept whatever fruits come from that action. And the Trump folks just merely accepted that. And it's just such bullshit. It really is.
Yeah,
I mean,
and let's not forget that this was a bipartisan, the congressional investigation into this was bipartisan. And if I remember correctly, Mark Rubio was either the ranking member at the time, or certainly, or the majority represented the majority at the time. But I know he was intimately involved in that investigative process. So the conclusions that you're talking about, it wasn't a partisan thing. It was bipartisan. So for Trump to now come out and try to suggest that, there was some kind of conclusion that indicted President Obama, it's just utterly ridiculous. It's unfounded. And I think it really goes to this obsession that he has had with Obama that is well documented, that I think really goes back to, in my mind, and I kind of jokingly say it's Obama's fault, when Obama eviscerated him at a White House press corps dinner.
Yes.
Trump was right there in the audience, and Obama eviscerated him, for all of that foolishness related to the birth certificate that eventually Trump had to concede was foolishness. I think Trump has just had it in for Obama since then.
Yeah, let me read a brief story from PBS back at the time. It's talking about exactly what you were talking about.
PBS? No, Josh, you can't do that. Not
I'm
PBS.
sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, and we'll get into that in a few moments as well. The Senate Intelligence Committee on Tuesday published the fifth and final report from its inquiry into Russia's efforts, an inquiry the panel launched while Donald Trump was still president-elect. The final report's most notable findings singled out Paul Manafort, Trump's campaign chair in 2016, whose contacts with Russian associates, the report said, posed a grave counterintelligence threat. Some of the text in the Republican-led committee's 966-page report is redacted. Even so, it offers the most detailed findings yet about the links between Russia and some of the figures in Trump's orbit. A previous criminal investigation, the one run by special counsel Robert Mueller, had already delved into Manafort's contacts with Konstantin Kilimnik, one of his former business partners, who Mueller's final report identified as having ties to Russian intelligence. For some time during the 2016 campaign, Manafort shared some of the Trump campaign's polling data with Kilimnik, Mueller's report said, and the two met in person in New York that August to discuss campaign strategy as well. But Mueller's investigation never came to a conclusion about what he did with that data. The new Senate report goes further in that it describes Kilimnik outright as a Russian intelligence officer. It also suggests that both Manafort and Kilimnik might have been connected to the Russian hacking of Democratic figures and organizations in 2016, but the evidence for that suggestion appears to have been redacted from the report released Tuesday. The committee concluded that Russian intelligence probably tried to take advantage of Manafort as a way to learn more about the Trump campaign. I mean, this is the Republican-led committee, okay?
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, it was a bipartisan committee and a bipartisan report, and this is what happened. And the fact that now we have people, I mean, we've got Fox News over here running stories and with graphics and talking about Obama being caught red-handed, and it's just, it's such, I don't understand how y'all keep falling for this. Why do you keep falling for this? I mean, literally, the truth was presented to you on a platter a few years ago. Do y'all really not remember 8 years ago? Is that long ago? Damn.
Yeah, it's almost like we're back in middle school or high school where you got this one kid who's always getting into trouble and finding a reason to blame somebody else or to point the finger at somebody else, or who makes wild accusations to try to cover up his involvement in something he shouldn't have been involved in. I mean, that's what it seems to be. That's what I think of it as.
Yeah, and typically though, those kids didn't have a cult who followed along with them, you know.
Right.
And so,
right,
you know,
right,
you didn't. They didn't have helpers. You know, the media department at the school didn't immediately drop in, swoop in, and help distribute pamphlets on his behalf. It's just, I mean, damn, man. I just, you know, this stuff is there. It doesn't even take that much Googling effort to find it. I mean, it doesn't.
Nope.
You know, it's such an outright lie. You know, from Gabbard, and I mean Tulsi Gabbard, who was, I mean, shut up. You know,
yeah,
shut up.
Let me ask you a question before we have to get out of here. I want to see what you think about this. It is clear that the Republicans in Congress, especially in the House, perhaps, well, I won't say especially, I'll say notably in the House, may have found the line that they're not willing to cross. If Mike Johnson had to shut down the House, or has to shut down the House in order to prevent a release of the Epstein files, do you think that maybe, Josh, now, finally, some of these Republicans are going to take a principled stand as it relates to, or I should say a majority of Republicans, because we've always had some Republicans that have taken a stand as it relates to Trump, but just there's been a very small minority of them. But are we going to see a huge increase in Republicans who are just going to say, you know, this Epstein pedophilia, sleazy situation is just a bridge too far?
No, not. I mean, we'll have a few, but I mean, you know, honestly, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but one of the most principled out of this whole thing has been Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, of all the people. Yeah, I mean, she has got like a dog with a bone, which I think people have said before about her, but in different ways. And it's just, you know,
wait a minute, no, you didn't say that. No, you didn't say that.
But, you know, she's really been principled in this whole thing. And I just, you know, and I congratulate her for it. And, you know, and
it's pretty shocking.
Is
she a mother? Does she have children? Is that what it is? I don't know much about her.
Honestly, I think that she is, you know, she got involved in this. This was one of her issues, you know, the Epstein deal. And she was convinced that Democrats were covering it up. And now she can't let it go, you know. And I think that even for her, it's now, ultimately, I think if it comes down to it, she'll probably vote with the Republicans to do whatever Trump wants to do because, they're all at the end of the day cowards. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as well because we have some of those in this state as well that we have exposed through a Ponzi scheme. I just think that they're the Trump folks are very vindictive and they're very overbearing and they are shameless and they are retaliatory and they believe they have the upper hand. Now, with that, I'll say this to your point. If the polling starts to show that Trump can no longer affect their elections and their livelihood in Congress, then I think you will have a lot of defections on that because I think a lot of people are ready to get out from underneath that thumb and to tell some of these people to piss off. And so I think maybe that would happen, and hopefully it's coming. Hopefully it's headed down that pathway. Maybe they're finally realizing that this guy's just basically poison for them ultimately at the end of the day. So, all righty, let's slide out. We're going to get Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed in to talk about what's going on in the city. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy as always, when we get a chance to visit with Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed, who joins us now. Mr. Mayor, thank you for spending a little bit of time.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. How's everything going? Been having a good summer so far?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I'm still camped out at the beach, so I'm okay.
Josh lives a hard life, Mr. Mayor. He lives a very difficult life. My heart goes out to him. It just goes out to him.
Some of us haven't even made it to the beach all summer. So here's Josh just camped out there all the time.
Well, with great power comes great responsibility, and so I have no power, so I have no responsibilities. You guys got stuff going on. I got I just follow the kids to the beach. So hey, listen, we wanted to get you on and just kind of talk about some stuff. I've seen you in the headlines. You're a favorite of our folks over at 1819 News. They love to throw everything they can at you, but I did want. Some of the stuff, while we kind of laugh and shake our head at some of the stories and the way they frame them, it is a serious topic at the end of the day. I mean, it is, the crime in the city and things that are happening. And I guess, could you give everybody kind of an update on what's happening? I know you had the ALEA task force, the state task force. How is that going? How have things been?
Yeah, first, I think every mayor in the city gets up, goes to sleep, dreams about public safety and how to make their community safer. We're no different here in Montgomery. And I think that, through the first 6 months of the year, we've been doing pretty good. And I think the data, proves that. I think for us, to see crime down overall, 28% violent crime in particular, down 28%, to see our non-fatal shootings down about 22%, robberies down over 40%, part one crimes down about 15%, and homicides down, 12%. Those are, very good trends, very, very good trends. We'd like to, see everything down 100%. We'd love to live in that type of world where that exists. Unfortunately, we don't. And we understand the environment and we understand it probably better than most because we do more research, we do more partnerships, both locally and statewide and nationally, probably than most. And it's always been a priority. And it's been a priority for us because I know that, health equals wealth, any way you look at it. And so when you're in a city like Montgomery, you need a healthy city. You need a healthy community. You need residents to be healthy in all forms to create that wealth and to create the type of city that you want to see. And certainly being born and raised here, it's one of those things that is always sensitive, to me.
Mhm.
And, the credit goes to everybody. I mean, the city, Montgomery Police Department, Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, the ATF, FBI, U.S. Marshals, DA, our judges, even though I kind of press them a little bit, our judges as well, and then certainly our community leaders who are out here every day helping us, try to keep people on the right track and try to minimize the risk of violence in our communities, and to be, really just frank with you, far too often in Black communities. And I think that's important, for us to, keep in mind. I told somebody, for me, it's personal because you see far too many um, Black men and Black boys that are impacted by violent crime, and too often on the wrong side of that. And Black women and Black girls certainly being, right after that. So it's a um, personal thing, I guess, for me, because I feel a higher level of responsibility. I think understanding the community, understanding some of the challenges that come along with it, to find solutions. And that's what
Hmm.
we've been, seeking both far and wide to do, is to make sure that uh, the Black community, in particular Montgomery, is not disproportionately represented where violent crime is concerned. And we want all of our residents, Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native. I mean, we want everybody to be safe. But far too often, again, the data tells us that too many are African American men and women. And we have
Yeah.
to figure that out through our churches, through our education system, through jobs and other economic opportunities, and then just getting on the ground as well to try to disrupt this cycle of violence. And, while the first 6 months has been, again, I think pretty good, we know there's more work for us to do, and we're not going to be complacent or comfortable in what the stats show us right now throughout the rest of this year.
You mentioned you grew up there, you lived there your whole life, except for obviously you went away to college for a little while, and so you had that time away. But for the most part, you've been there your whole life. What do you think? What do you think has changed? I mean, what do you when people talk about, hey, Montgomery has changed. We're not the same. It's a more dangerous place. It's a more, there's more crime. It's not the place that we lived. And I've heard this from, not just the conservative white people that want to complain all the time, but from others as well. And to obviously not to such a dramatic degree as the conservatives who are scared of everything, but just what do you think has changed? And if you don't think something has changed, what do you think gives people the perception that Montgomery is such a dangerous city?
Yeah, listen, I think that one, it's important for us to understand that crime has always, been a part of life. You know, there was a time, many moons ago that people want to reminisce about things not ever happening. Well, you didn't really know they happened, right? You got your news 30 minutes a day, um, twice a day. Um, you may have gotten a newspaper, and now you probably get something, to your phone every 30 minutes, if not less than that.
Hmm.
And so people are much more aware. They're much more knowledgeable about what's happening in their community. And I think that, with the advent of social media, obviously it brings it right to you, puts it right in front of you, exactly what's happening, where, when, and how. And so it gives people, the sense that not only just Montgomery, but cities, the uh, the culture is not as safe anymore. Psychologists have noted this, sociologists have noted this. I've been a part of Bloomberg Philanthropies City Summit, City Lab with 250 mayors from around the world, and you've got these data scientists telling us how people are being inundated with information, and most of it is negative. Um, so there certainly is the feeling that's there, and I think statistically, you see more um, crime in part because you have a different culture in our society now than what it was 25 years ago, much less 50 years ago. It has changed. Access to guns and firearms don't help. Social media being, a place to inflame tensions and emotions don't help. And people being able to see things in uh, whether they be good or bad, just with their iPhone or their Android or whatever they may have, doesn't help us either. And what I think happens is from a perception standpoint, because people are inundated with the negative, they feel more pessimistic about things. They feel that the news and the information that's being shared is not as positive because I could be in my silo, I could be in my corner of the world and not really be interrupted as much 25 years ago or even 10 years ago. That has changed. And listen, I think that as we think about the culture itself and talking to many of our violence interrupters and people who are trying to reduce gun violence in our communities, and that's not just here in Montgomery, but across the country, social media kind of inflames this because people now aren't as willing to fight. And they'll tell you that. They told me that offline because they believe that somebody has a gun. And so,
Hmm.
they said, well, better for me to get them than for them to get me. And so there's this code that has changed even in terms of how we disagree and how we settle those disagreements that has become much more deadly and has become much more, violent versus, I think, how we were as a society, many moons ago. That
Huh.
said, I think that we have a lot of things that we've invested in the city, from our expanded parks and recreation programs to Office of Violence Prevention to other partnerships that we have with nonprofits, to teach people conflict resolution and to teach young people how to de-escalate situations and walk away. And as a former police chief told me, very recently, he said, "You never know how many crimes you stop. Nobody keeps that stat." He said,
Right.
but we all know, the stat of how many crimes, that occur. And so we're always grateful, for those that are in the community doing as much as they can. But we also know, obviously that the media and social media algorithms are very, very different. And we didn't have these things many years ago. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison, as I like to share with people in terms of perception. The data we can argue with, and we can go back and forth on
Yeah.
that. But I certainly think the perception of Montgomery being a dangerous city is wrong. I think it's not accurate, and I think it's overblown. And I think
Hey,
our
Mr.
numbers
Mayor.
stacked along cities
Hmm.
our size show that.
So let me ask you. You used the word perception just a few seconds ago, and I want to talk about perception from this angle. Many times when it comes to violence in major cities, it's automatically characterized as a black problem or a black community problem. What I believe is that race is really not the determinant, that economics is, and that economics breeds the economics of a community creates pockets of desperation in some areas of the community, and that because of the racial history of this country and the economic realities of living in this country, that the issue has always been not, whether we're talking about black people or white people, but we're talking really about poor people. Do you agree or disagree with that assessment?
Yeah, I think class, and economics plays a lot in it. Often people who don't see the optimism and don't see the hope feel more desperate about various actions. They tend to be in different environments that are um, prone to disruption, if you will, and sometimes, simple conflict. And that's, an unfortunate part. When we look at the crime numbers here, and we do this every year, overwhelmingly, I mean, it's either 80-20, if not more. Victims of violent crime are engaged in some type of illegal or illicit activity, right? And so there's something that's happening there. Now, unfortunately, there are times when an innocent bystander is pulled in. There's a family member or neighbor that's pulled into that. And then certainly if your um, community does not have some of the opportunities that others have, you tend to find that more prevalent in your surroundings. Now, having said that, I do think that economics doesn't, I don't want to say justify, it doesn't dictate everything. But I do think that it plays an overwhelming factor in the numbers, in the data points that we see, regardless of what your racial or what your ethnic group, may be.
Well, let's look even a step further. Let's take it a step further. So, in Montgomery, you've got institutions of higher education like Alabama State. You've got the University of you've got Auburn University, Montgomery, and whatever other entities you have there, educational entities. It seems to me that by and large, when you look at I'm just going to put it in quotes, the black community in Montgomery, by and large, you're looking at a community that ranges from, of course, the impoverished, all the way to, an upper class of intellectual elites, educational elites, people that may be white-collar professionals like yourself, or doctors, lawyers, what have you. Again, the characterization of a community, lumping it all into one racial group, pardon me, as opposed to looking at it more in terms of the economic stratosphere of that community, and what you find in certain areas seems to me to be problematic, because again, the vast majority of people in the so-called black community are not engaged in crime, I would imagine. And I think that's true anywhere. I don't care where you go. And I've lived in Chicago. I've been to probably all of the major cities in this country. And it just seems to me like that's the story.
Listen, I think that, again, class and economic opportunity, education plays a vital role. I've got a good friend of mine who says, well, when a person has a job, they are less tempted to rob. And so, how do you prepare people, and how do you show them the opportunity that's out there, to grow economically and to grow personally and professionally, if they haven't seen that before, right? If they haven't seen that example, they aren't familiar with that example. If they're more familiar with you know chaos and things that may be happening around them, whether it be in their home, whether it be on their street or in their neighborhood, then that tends to make things a lot more challenging. I think for us, and again, as I said a little earlier, I am concerned about the disproportionate amount of Black men that are victims or involved in violent crime here in the city. But that's certainly not to cast an aspersion on that group of people. I know plenty of people, who are working hard every day in various fields, from lawn care to working in manufacturing space, to entrepreneurs, to working those white collar professional jobs that we were just referencing. I just think that for us as a city, and for me being a native son, it is concerning that um, these young men don't see the opportunity. And look, I put that on me. Then we have to do a better job at the city, as the mayor, of showing them opportunities and making sure those opportunities sometimes literally are brought to their doorstep. And I mean literally to their doorstep. When we have companies, saying that they've got shortages of workers, I got to make sure that, these young men and others understand that, hey, there's some good money to be had without having to look over your shoulder, without having to come in contact with police department or the sheriff's office or any other form of law enforcement. And we've got to do a little better through our organizations and making them aware of that. And again, as the mayor, I want to make sure that I'm utilizing all the tools necessary. And that's why we've been adding more preventative measures than the city has had. I think what we're seeing right now are things that have been in the pipeline for a long time. And unfortunately, it's going to take, probably a long time for us to change the narrative and to change the outcomes for so many of these young men and women who don't see the hope and the opportunity that's out there. But it doesn't mean we give up. It means we have to,
Right. Right.
just think about different ways to reach them and think about different methods and maybe even different messengers to reach them as well. And as others in the community have said, we probably have to start a little bit earlier than where we're starting right now with some of them. Just understanding that life for them happens at a different rate of speed when you don't have food in the refrigerator or you don't know who's going to be at home or if anybody's going to be at home when you get there after school. Things tend to happen, and we've got to make sure we're taking into account societal challenges in that and try to
Right.
leverage our partnerships and our platform to help those avoid this cycle of violence and avoid this cycle of ultimately what is destruction of not only individuals and families but communities as well.
Sure. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm suggesting that there aren't problems in the Black community, but I think there is a reason why the Black community is disproportionately affected and often characterized, I think, very loosely, without any regard for the economic realities that tend to create this problem. You used the term, this is my final question from me, Mr. Mayor, final question from me. You used a phrase that I'd like to have you expound upon. I think you used the term violence interrupters. I believe that's the term you used. Who are the violence interrupters in Montgomery that need to be highlighted and supported by not just the people in Montgomery, but perhaps even across the state?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. For us, the Office of Violence Prevention has been doing good work since we got it off the ground. And we benchmarked that program from Newark Mayor Ras Baraka in Newark, New Jersey. And it helped them over time drop their crime precipitously in neighborhoods that were, thought to be just, left out and lost and unrecoverable. We saw the same thing in Baltimore. And of course, Baltimore now has been in the news recently for reaching a 50-year low in terms of their homicides. And it's because they've had these programs now in place for several years where you have violence interrupters. And these are people who are working either with your city Office of Violence Prevention, or they may be working with outreach groups like we have with our community violence initiative and the Together We Rise initiative. And working from a standpoint of we're not law enforcement, we're not government, we're not church, we're people from the streets. We're people from these lived experiences that can talk about and talk to people of all ages about how they interrupt this cycle of violence that tends to claim so many in terms of families, neighborhoods, and then broader communities. And these are people who some have been in the penitentiary, some have been in the life, and want to help and are actively working with other organizations to help those avoid their same path. And they speak with a level of credibility because of what they have done in the sins that they have repented, asked for repentance. And because of that, they are able to go in places that certainly I'm not, the police chief is not, the sheriff is not, anyone from government is not, and usually even some of our church leaders aren't. but they're able to go in with a level of credibility and talk to people about how to take a different path and how to take a different approach to something that somebody may feel, whether they've been disrespected, whether they feel like they've been called out on social media, whether it is somebody has threatened them with physical harm, how to deal with it in both what the short term and long term, impact is overall. And so for us, that's important because Montgomery has typically not been in this space. I mean, we've only been in it 3 years, and I would say we're still crawling. I'm not sure we're walking yet. So
Mm-hmm.
for us, we hope that in the future, these seeds that we're planting right now do blossom into a much more peaceful community across our city. And I think these violence interrupters bring a level of street cred, bring a level of believability to others that they can understand and they can um, hear them differently than maybe a psychologist, maybe a sociologist, somebody that's in human behavior, and somebody who may have all the academic pedigree, but not the lived experience, not the real life
Right.
Yeah.
day-to-day challenges these violence interrupters have. And again, we've seen it make a difference in cities across this country through initiatives like this. That's why we invested millions of dollars in our Office of Violence Prevention and the Together We Rise initiative. And that's why we're even revamping our community centers and what we offer and who we partner with to make sure that as a meeting place and hubs in some of our more economically challenged neighborhoods, we have safe spaces for people to come, meet, talk, and flush out the emotion and to respond with calmer heads so that people's lives aren't permanently changed in a way that, with a more rational approach could have been avoided.
Hey, listen. We know we kept you for a while, so I got one more, but I'm gonna cheat and double it up here. But because we've had a discussion before about this, and and it's always been my stance, and rightly or wrongly, that education is the key to a lot of this. And I've said before, not many times does somebody with a bachelor's degree break into your house or your garage,
I
but
mean,
so I noticed one thing I wanted to get you to address. I noticed y'all just passed a youth curfew in the city. Wanted to see what was behind that, and then also another hot topic that has been around the city is the starting of the city school system. I know you had mentioned that you had been behind it before. I wanted to see where you are now with that, and if there have been any movements down that pathway.
yeah, let me start. Let me start that in reverse order. The city school system, I think, is certainly an option that I intend to explore. And it's one I intend to explore legislatively. And I've already talked with several organizations about helping us inform the city and the community about what it would look like and what it wouldn't look like. I'm not one who looks to duplicate anything that's being done well. You won't hear me saying, well, I know that's happening great over here. So let me go show Hyundai how to crank out more cars. I think Hyundai
Mm-hmm.
does a pretty good job of cranking out cars. They kind of got that down, right? Um, but where there are areas of improvement, I'm always looking to improve, both internally and externally. And our school systems, I believe, are a crucial component to this very topic that we've just been talking about, we've been discussing. When you have the level of boys and girls who are not reading at grade level that we have in our city, that calls for drastic change. We cannot be um, accepting of that. I happen to be a graduate of Morehouse College, and our president emeritus, Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, is one who, for a long time, stressed the need for education and the value in education. And this was many decades ago. But my point in referencing that is that the standard and the need hasn't changed, whether you're talking about um, early, midway in the 20th century, or whether you're talking about now in the 21st century, um, where we are right now. And I think all options have to be on the table because we don't have the level of trust and confidence in the board leadership to take the challenge that we already have, which has been a chronically underfunded school system, of which I led the initiative to increase revenue and increase the funding for that in my first year in office. Wasn't even my first year, wasn't even in 100 days. And there were people who said, well, you won't be reelected. I said, well, if I don't, it'll be for a good cause. And so I believe in public schools, but you got to have the right governance, you got to have the right model, and you got to be able to be nimble to adapt where kids are today. And for us, I spoke about wealth and health earlier, and health and wealth, it being an irreversible link. Well, you can't get to the wealth part if people aren't educated. You can't get there if you have chronic absenteeism. You can't get there if you have a truancy issue. You can't get there if you don't have teachers showing up and being accountable. You can't get there if the parents aren't interested. The staff and the principals of those schools aren't interested. And if your board does not have the best practices in mind in terms of what has been helping and changing the lives of young people of all backgrounds racially from economically disadvantaged communities, then how can we apply that here? You can't do that, in Montgomery if we don't have steady leadership in the superintendent's office. And you're turning those superintendents over less than, 3 years, you're not going to be successful. So we have already started the conversation and started some um, preliminary meetings about a city school system. And this will go alongside with whatever happens um, in our school board races next year in 2026. So that will have a big factor, or that will be a big factor, I should say. It will have a big impact on not only Montgomery, but central Alabama as a whole, because we cannot be economically viable without an educated populace. And we can't do that if our schools aren't doing their part and if our school board does not allow strong educational, innovative leadership to come in to address the challenges we have in our system. And it'll be something that I certainly look forward to talking to you all more about, because it's not an overnight thing. It's not a rush process. We're going to be transparent with the community. We're going to take questions and comments from the community again to make sure that misinformation doesn't get out there too far. And then ultimately, it'll be the community decision how we move by who they elect as it relates to the quality of our education and the quality of that education for young people in Montgomery. Because if you don't address that, then many of these issues that we've been discussing won't get any better.
I was going to get you to address the youth curfew if you could.
That's exactly where I was going. So, the youth curfew is an issue that's been talked about with our city council for the last several years, has not been enacted. I think, the hope was that parents would police and could police their young people and their kids and whatnot. That is not happening. And so we, like other cities, took the step this year, again, after probably talking about this for the last 2 summers, if not more than that, and considering it, to implement it, of which I signed that ordinance that was passed unanimously by the city council. That ordinance is meant to be guardrails, guys. We know it's not the end all be all. It's meant to kind of be a guardrail for young people in our downtown entertainment district. I imagine that if it's successful, we see issues in other entertainment districts around the city, we'll look at expanding there. So it's not citywide as much as it is focused on the downtown entertainment district right now. And that's to make sure that those tourists, those airmen and women, and our hardworking folks around the city and around the region who want to come enjoy downtown for a show, who want to come enjoy downtown for a great restaurant or cocktails, some live music, can have that in the environment that it's meant to be, and that is for adults. And the young people can be where they're supposed to be by 9 o'clock under adult supervision, wherever that may be, but not in a downtown entertainment district. that's selling alcohol and promoting, other nighttime activities. So we'll see how it goes. I'm optimistic about it, but we know, again, it's no silver bullet solution for our challenge. We're going to have to make sure that young people are being guided in the right direction by their peers and by their adult counterparts, and not emulating everything they see on social media somewhere else. And we want to make sure that they feel that Montgomery is a great place for them and it's a fun place, but in the right space and in the right time.
Well, listen, I know we've said it many times. It's a challenge that was was certainly not laid out the moment you step through the door in the mayor's office. It's things, problems, and issues that have grown over time, and anyone who's not smart enough to see that really shouldn't comment on things that because it is. I mean, I was there for a long time, and you could see the problems coming. You could see the issues coming, and but listen, man, we appreciate you spending time and the work that y'all are doing, and I know it's just like with when people criticize players in games for missing shots or whatever, or striking out. I mean, nobody cares more than they do. They're the ones in the game, and it's kind of the same situation here. I wish you well. If there's anything that we can do to help, we're certainly ready and available to try to help with the efforts, because we would love to see the violence go down and Montgomery, like it is. I mean, continue the trend downward, and Montgomery to thrive and be the great city that I know it is, that I enjoyed living in for so long. But thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Josh, David, thank you guys for the work you do. Thanks for the opportunity. And we'll keep
always good
doing
to
the
see
work here in the city. We'll keep pushing with our partners, and we'll keep promoting the positive things that are happening right in this city. Contrary to the political narrative of some on the other side, we're doing some good things in this city. And the crime data for the first 6 months show that a lot of our effort and that of the community members is working. We're going to continue to make sure those numbers continue to go down, and we work even harder to make this a safer place. But also, David, as you brought up, a more equitable place for economic opportunity, because I do believe those things are inextricably linked. And we want to make sure that people know they can climb the economic ladder and achieve the American dream right here in our city. And we're going to continue to put those steps in place to do just that.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
Awesome.
good luck, and thank you again, Mayor. We'll see you. I guess we'll see you next month. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same here.
All righty.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Take care.
Yes, sir. That is Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed. Appreciate him as always. We're going to slide out. We're going to come back and we'll wrap this thing up in just a minute. To Alabama Politics This Week. Back in a moment. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Thanks to Mayor Stephen Reed for coming on, spending some time. Our thanks to the folks at Wing Creek Entertainment for sponsoring and continuing to hang in there with us, and really do appreciate them and what they do and how they do it. Thanks to the folks at Southern Poverty Law Firm. We're going to have to get their new CEO on recently. Margaret Wang just stepped down, and they've appointed a new person as the CEO there. We'll get him on and talk to him about the future of SPLC and what's kind of going on there with them. It's listen, we're going to wrap her up here pretty quick because no reason other than I'd like to go to the beach, and so it's right outside. Okay.
Priorities.
No, we're not going to be that quick, but we will be fairly quick. I wanted to before we got to the right wing nut, there were some things that happened around the state we wanted to get to over the last couple of weeks, and mainly one of the bigger ones has come about over this past week, and that's the Ponzi scheme that occurred actually in the state of Georgia, is where it was based. It's a First National. Whatever, the dude Brant Frost the fourth, who I think I said in a column was either destined to run a Ponzi.
Huh? Yeah, he's got 3 names, right? Doesn't he have 3 names?
Yeah, something. He goes by Brant, though, so I sort of called him Brant Frost the Fourth, and but yeah,
Okay.
he does have an old school name, which I said he with a name like that he was destined to either run a Ponzi scheme or a cotton plantation, and
Yeah.
it
That was
was.
a good line, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Every now and then I'll hit one. Just keep swinging. And
Yeah. Yeah.
he was running a classic Ponzi scheme. It was set up as though he was going to give out high interest loans, bridge loans, basically, for small businesses while they awaited their funding from the SBA, and the people were going to get these fantastic returns on their investments, and it turned out it was all just complete bullshit. And Brant was taking his family on nice vacations and buying expensive watches and cars and things like that for himself and living a good life, and influencing politics because he was also funding a lot of campaigns and encouraging some of his favorite politicians, including some in the state of Alabama, where Andrew Sorrell, our state auditor, got sucked into this Ponzi scheme as well. Donated $29,000, which I had never in my life heard of a PAC giving money to somebody. I've never heard of this. Where the PAC invested $29,000 into this, what ended up being a Ponzi scheme. And then, Brant and his folks also spent a lot of money in the state on politicians, including a school board candidate who Sorrell backed. His name was Alan Long, a doctor from Florence who promised to get the woke out of our Alabama schools, which I've come to mean. I think it means that they're going to get actual education out.
Yeah.
And then also Benjamin Harrison, that was over there. It was funny to me. All of these people run in the same little orbit up in North Alabama, and I reported on when I reported on John Wall and his brother Noah Wall and the way that they were running the Limestone County Republican Committee, and the way a lot of Republicans in that committee had a problem with some of the things they were doing. Some of the names that kept coming up was Benjamin Harrison and Andrew Sorrell, as folks who were pretty close to them. And so I wonder if John Wall also might have gotten taken in on this Ponzi scheme. I know that he and Brant Frost were close at one time. I know they were in the same group. And I think it was not the Heritage Foundation, but one of those other right wing. They have like some sort of a class, I guess, where they come in and teach you how to hate everybody. And so he was in the class with, I think, the 2022 class with Frost, and so I assume they know each other. I assume that he was at least pitched the idea, and so we'll see what kind of shakes out of that as the Alabama Securities Commission kind of goes after that and tries to see who else was involved or what else needs to happen. And but this is the commingling of religion and politics and investing.
And that's one thing I wanted to ask you about. I know you've done a significant amount of reporting on this, you and some other folks at APR. Now I'm looking at this APR story that says the Alabama Christian Citizens made a loan. They're characterizing it as a loan to the $29,000 you were just talking about to one of Frost's companies.
Yes,
that seems very strange to me.
Well, yeah, it's odd. I've never heard of it. That's what I said. I've never heard of a PAC putting money. I mean, I think Sorrell called it in another story an investment. That he said, that PACs sometimes put their money into high yield savings account, and he called it the same thing. I'll also say that when Whitmire Kyle Whitmire at AL.com, talked to him. He asked him about, this, and then also Whitmire went back and found some records where Sorrell had asked the Ethics Commission if this was legal. And they had told him that there was nothing that prevented him from doing it. And so, but yeah, I've never heard of it before.
I think I'm still missing something. So a PAC makes a loan or an investment, whatever you want to call it, into one of Frost's companies, one of his privately owned companies.
Yes.
And then that business then in turn does what?
It was, he was going to get a return on that investment, and so he started. If you look at the records from the PAC, he started almost immediately getting $290 per month checks back from Frost's company, the First National Savings or whatever it is.
So you're saying the PAC did? The PAC started getting $290?
The PAC started getting $290 a month or so. I think it's $250 some months, $290 some months.
Right.
But they started getting money back from that investment at that point. So, and I will say, in Sorrell's defense, I've gone through a lot of campaign finance reports in my time, and I have seen where PACs will take, if they have a substantial amount of money, they've got to house that money somewhere. You know what I mean? And so they'll take it and put it into a bank account. Typically, a standard high yield savings account at a Renaissance or a Wells Fargo or something like that, and then they'll note on their campaign finance reports each month, and especially during the non-election years and stuff, they'll note each time they get interest from that, and it'll be noted as interest payments coming back in, and typically it's $130, $150, something along those lines, and so. Yeah, I mean that's not that odd, and so what he asked the Ethics Commission was, did it have to be an FDIC insured financial institution like a bank, or could he do this with something like this because this was not a bank, this was an investment privately owned company that was giving out loans to small businesses, and they said just looking at it, as long as you're not commingling personal and campaign funds, that there was nothing that was going to prevent it. And as long as he was not profiting from it personally, then there was nothing to prevent it. So, I think that there's some problems. I think there's some other problems with some of the things that Sorrell has done. But I mean, I'm going to report on that later and let some other people decide, what they think about it. And so, because I don't know that what he did was, I don't know that he's done anything illegal. I think that some of the things that he has done probably should be illegal, or at least prevented by, the rules. If that, I don't think Andrew Sorrell should go to jail. You know what I'm saying? But I think that what he's done should be prevented by the rules, and I don't think they are currently. So I think that's a problem for what we've done. I think that we've been a little lax in a number of areas. Alabama does not have. Another thing that I wrote about recently was a candidate for AG, Robertson, taking $1 million from a place that was formed last week sometime, that nobody knows who they are, who's running it, where the money come from. You can't track any of it. It's all completely dark money, and we don't have any rules against that.
Yeah.
It's all legal. Yeah. And I said, and I made it very clear that what she's done is, it's skirting around the intent of our laws, in which our laws have been crafted in a way, at least on the surface, to make money in campaigns transparent. Who's given $1 million to a candidate should be something that we can find out. Okay,
absolutely.
Who's behind that is something that we should be able to find out. And what she's done, not just her, others have done it as well, but her on the grandest, to the grandest degree that I have seen, she took a large amount of money, and we have no idea where it came from. I mean, we know where it came from last, but we don't know who was the source of it originally.
And that's the whole point. I mean, because obviously we need to know as citizens who's trying to influence our elected officials and why. You know, and if people don't understand that, I mean, and of course, unfortunately, the politicians don't want restrictions because they want to get as much money as they can. But we as voters, we should be very concerned about that.
Absolutely. I mean, it should be. Listen, the other states have a ban, either a ban on C4s donating directly to campaigns, or they have a rule that says, if you're going to do this, then that C4 has to disclose its donors, all of them. If it doesn't, then it's an illegal donation. You can't accept it. And so, I don't know why we can't do that. I think that they should be allowed to accept the money as long as there are no pack-to-pack transfers involved and the donors are disclosed out from where they come. I think that's, look, I don't think that drug lords are backing, an AG candidate's, run for office, but we still should know. I think it says
Absolutely.
a lot about who you are and what your priorities are going to be in office by the people who support you, and especially to that large degree. I don't give a damn about somebody who gives you $100 to $500. Nobody cares. I don't care about that. Okay.
Right.
But if somebody gives you $1 million, come on, man. For an AG's race, come on.
Yeah. Well, it's very clear. Anybody that's investing that much money in a campaign, they have an expectation of something.
Yes.
Now, is that necessarily unethical? No, not necessarily. But I think that's the whole point in transparency.
Yeah. Yes.
We need to know. And we need to try so that we can try to ascertain as voters and as the general public just what is the motivation and what could be the motivation, and maybe even apply some scrutiny to that, So, this is problematic, man.
Yeah, no, it is, and you're right. This is the hardest thing that I have, and I honestly I sent them messages, and I appreciate Robertson's campaign person Dalton Dismukes answering and being very open to having a conversation about it. I really do appreciate that, because as I told him, I'm not questioning her ethics. I'm not questioning the legality of this. Matter of fact, I told him I'm going to stay way up high in this thing that this is perfectly legal. Okay, and make it very clear that it's perfectly legal and that she's broken no laws whatsoever. Okay, but at the same time, this is an issue for the state, I think, and for state lawmakers to come in and clean up, because we are masking who these people are who are, yeah, you're right. If somebody's giving you $1 million, they don't just want access to you. They want performance from you. They want results from you. Okay. And they are expecting something out of that. Now, again, I'm not saying that what they're expecting is something illegal. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that what they're expecting is something that's going to be compromising to her morals or to the state, but they are expecting her to behave in a certain way, and they want that. They want to ensure that those things happen, and that they have some influence.
Trying to incentivize that. Yeah.
Yes,
that's right.
And so, and I think that we should know what that is, because I think if they are so confident that she's going to behave this way, that they're willing to give her $1 million, that we should know what the hell that is. What are you about to do?
That's right.
And so, and listen, it may be something that I agree with. Maybe she's going to push gambling and open up the laws for gambling. Maybe she's going to go in and clean up the prison system. Maybe it's something I support and would be behind, but we should still know that.
That's right.
And I say that for everybody. And just real quickly on that line of I say that for everybody. Let me tell you one thing that really bothered me this week.
Okay.
First of all, there's two. There's hypocrisy of one, and then just the idea from the other. And that was Trump holding his "I'm walking to the airplane" press conference, in which he says that he's encouraging the people in Texas to redraw the voting maps over there to make sure that Texas remains a reliably Republican state. Right? He says this, to which a reporter then says, "I hear that Gavin Newsom is going, if this happens, he's going to do the same in California and redraw those lines to ensure that it remains Democratic and that there is no, we'll flush out some of the Republicans that are there in that state." To which Trump then calls him a crook and said, "Oh, well, he's just a crook." He's saying he's doing the same thing you just said you wanted to do. Literally 30. And what drives me insane is nobody at the walk to the plane press conference says, "Wait a minute, did you just hear yourself 30 fucking seconds ago? What are you talking about?" However, I will say, I think all of that is bullshit. Okay. Nobody should be redrawing the lines. Nobody, not Democrats, not Republicans, nobody. California does it exactly right. They've set up a commission. They have it independent. They draw those lines based on what the maps and the data tells them is the most fair for their elections. And that's the way it should be all across the country. And however the chips fall, that's how the chips fall. If we end up without 2 black representatives in Alabama, that's how the chips fell. Okay. But as long as the districts were fair, I would be happy with that. And I think it would behoove us all to have that, because it would open up a whole lot more competitive races, and we could get away from the yeah nonsense and into some compromising situations in which people had to work together to solve problems. And that's where the government that we have was designed to do its best work. So that's just
I
my
agree
thought.
with you. I don't disagree with that. I think, the outcome should be parity for the people, whatever that means in a different, in a given, geographic area, and that's all I want to see. I mean, just the opportunity for each vote to really matter, and for us not to create these siloed sections of states where, they're guaranteed outcomes. I think that's problematic. So I agree with you. I like the idea of a commission that is above, at least as much as possible, is above the politics, so that one person, one vote can become more of a reality. I'm all for that.
All righty. Let's do a right wing nut. Our right wing nut, I think it may be his first time. This is a virgin right wing.
I don't remember it being the nut before.
He's probably done some things in which he should have deserved it. But it's Dale Strong, our Congressman Dale Strong from North Alabama. And really, his push, this is what should have got him before, is because he was one of the original ones who was on this push to defund NPR. And public broadcasting, and to remove the federal funding, which is apparently what they're planning on doing at this point. They're gonna pull it looks like $1 billion out of the funding for the national broadcasting, and it is just that they're the worst. They're the worst people. It is the reasoning is so ridiculous and suspect. The attitude towards things is so ignorant. The idea that we all know there was bias in the reporting of PBS. No, there were facts, and the facts didn't line up with your stupid viewpoints. That's what happened. Okay, that they reported it. They offered each side a chance to say the different things, and they reported the facts. And oftentimes those facts did not line up with the stupid shit y'all like to believe. All right, and that's the difference. And you can tell me all day long that, well, we also didn't like the liberal agenda being pushed in those kids shows where they show 2 dads or they show 2 moms or whatever being forced upon our kids. Look, man, your kids are going to run into other kids who have 2 dads or 2 moms. That's the reality of life. And what those shows did was kind of prepare them for that and tell them that you're not to be an asshole to people or to treat them weirdly just because this is a fact of their life, okay? And that these people are not lesser humans because they love differently than you do. That's what those shows did. And if you've got a problem with that, you're an asshole. I mean, that's just all there is to it.
Yeah. And I would add a couple things to what you said, and I agree with everything you're saying. I would add a couple things. One, my career started in public radio. And I was a public radio talk show host. And yes, I had a liberal bent, no question. But I also was very, very open to, dialogue with conservatives. And at one point in the iteration of my show, or the development of my show, I should say, I even had a co-host who was a conservative. And we had very reasonable exchanges and conversations about issues of the day. Long time ago, before I even knew who you were, man. This was many years ago. WLRH in Huntsville. But the other thing I wanted to point out about public radio is, any news programming that you hear, by and large, represents, at least historically, has represented a relatively small percentage of the programming. I mean, a lot of it was music, whether it's classical or jazz, folk
That's right.
music, the blues. And even with the evolution of public radio, when you began to hear more talk-oriented programming, again, the bulk of that was not political. It was cultural, or
The tiny desk shows,
yeah.
I mean,
You got the
fresh air,
fresh air. But I was thinking also, Josh, of the some of the comedic, those quiz shows like Wait, Don't Tell Me, and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on there.
This American Life,
This American Life,
some of the greatest stories I've ever heard from there.
And
listen, I will say this. Let me say one thing though, that they are very suspect in who they hire for producers on some of those shows. Just put.
Who are you talking about?
I think he's listening.
I see. Okay. Now, so let me say too, a lot of conservative people listen to NPR.
Yes.
And derived a benefit from NPR. And I know that just from my roamings around North Alabama here. And the final thing I'll say about the NPR stations, Josh, is this. In some rural communities, the NPR stations, not only were their lifeline for news and information and cultural programming, but also for weather alert information. So this thing is going to undermine, I think, especially rural communities in ways that is going to be problematic in the long run, not only for those communities, but for those people like Dale Strong, who championed this and voted for it. It's what we call, the law of unintended consequences, perhaps, but they should have anticipated it. And I blame them for that.
It is. I mean, it's so stupid. I mean, it really is. And listen, I'll tell you this. I've listened. I will listen occasionally now to some of the PBS podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
This American Life. I listened to Serial. What Serial? A NPR podcast. And so some of those type things, I will listen to that. I have listened to Wait, Don't Tell Me. I found it to be a pretty funny show, which they often will have people that you find out later are conservatives on as a guest, and they're very funny, and everybody laughs and has a good time. And so I don't know. My dad listens all the time to the NPR station, and so whenever I'll listen, I'll hear something or whatever. But you're right; it's primarily music. I mean, it's and then you have the news updates. Once per hour or however often they come on, and it's just basic, straightforward, old school news. And I wrote, what it reminds. Honest to God, I wrote a column after going and watching the new Superman movie. And the outrage over Superman. And I expected to go into this movie and find that Superman was dragging around immigrant children with him and telling people that, all whatever, to listen to this, the outrage that was taking place. It was nothing. It was the same old Superman and the same old values that he preached from from when we were children. And it's the same thing with NPR. NPR hadn't changed. You dipshits have changed. Y'all have changed. You talk about Walter Cronkite and all these great old news guys that just gave you the news. That's what they've been doing, and you can't take it because you're dumb and you've been influenced by a cult to this point. I mean, it's you want to believe things and you want people to tell you that you're right, and you're not. And it's just, you know what I mean? That's what's changed is you. Not NPR. NPR hadn't changed. It didn't become liberal. It didn't become woke overnight. It's same as Superman. It didn't become woke or liberal. It's the same people. It's the same news. It's the same presentation. It's the same everything, except for now you can get it whenever you want it by podcast format for some of these different programs. And you're outraged and trying to defund it because they refuse to tell you what you want to hear. That ain't news, man. That's the cult newsletter is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You're looking for the cult newsletter, and they're not giving it to you. All right. Okay.
Yeah, you need to get to the beach now. Just
Yes,
relax.
I do. You're right.
Yeah, just
You're right.
relax. I know you like it like a sauna outside, so get on out there into your sauna there in Florida,
It's
and
only in the upper
just
80s,
relax.
man. I'm gonna have to
Oh,
do
so
some
really?
running. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to do some running to
It
get my heat up.
it's cooler down there than it is up here.
It is. Yeah, it has been
Wow.
pretty much every day. It's been a lot cooler down here. Been a couple of days, man, where it's been a little chilly, honestly. With the breeze blowing down here. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay,
Especially if it rains.
so right now in Huntsville it's 86 degrees, and it's supposed to get up to 90. Looks like 92 is going to be the high today.
All right, let me tell you. I'll tell you real quick what we got. Yeah, I know people are really enjoying our weather talk. It is. It is 83 degrees currently at Ponce Inlet, Florida.
Wow.
The high for today is 85 degrees.
Wow. Okay. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Poor Josh. Poor Josh. You got to suffer in that cool Florida weather. Poor
I don't
Josh.
like it. I don't like it. Hey, but until next week, y'all be safe out there.
All right, man. Peace.